Before we can get to that interview, though, folks, I need to tell you about our sponsors. The first one being Bet Online. We've got a lot of fantastic action happening across college football and the NFL. It's crunch time. The playoffs are happening, or getting close to happening for both of the college football and the NFL seasons. BetOnline remains your number one spot for football and basketball action this season. Head to their new and updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all of the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. And the other sponsor that I want to tell you about is Lightbox. Say goodbye to dull gifts. Lightbox lab-grown diamonds are the brightest gift of the year. Using cutting-edge technology and innovative techniques, we've cracked the science of sparkle, creating the highest quality lab-grown diamonds you can find at a light price, $800 per carat. They have the same chemical makeup of natural diamonds, but just are grown in a lab. Because of their process, they can create stones in blush pink, beautiful blue, as well as classic white. Lightbox lab-grown diamonds are the gift they'll never want to take off, priced so they won't have to. They really do make any outfit sparkle. Visit lightboxjewelry.com to add sparkle to your holiday shopping. That's lightboxjewelry.com. Lightbox diamonds, never a dull moment.
Now joining the Believe in NFL Draft Prospect podcast, a spotlight interview edition, Tulsa offensive lineman Chris Paul and 2022 Reese's Senior Bowl invitee and acceptance here. If you haven't caught a Tulsa game over the last couple of years, Chris has played both guards. He's played a tackle. He's been kind of all over the place for the Golden Hurricanes, and he's been a fantastic football player now for several years. Chris, inviting you in, man. Really appreciate, again, you taking a little bit of time today, man. I know it's really crazy during the season, but I thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I was kind of telling you before we started, just so everyone kind of gets the gist of the conversation. I've been a big fan of Chris for several months, been talking very highly of him and several of the Tulsa offensive linemen in general. I was talking to him before we started. I know Gerard is a really good player there at center. Tyler Smith's a guy that's caught my eye a bunch. So Tulsa really has a great offensive line and been doing a lot of great things, producing NFL talent over the last couple of years. And Chris, I kind of want to start this off as a little bit of a journey. So I went and I looked at, a little bit of your background, Jersey Village. Obviously, you're a Texas guy originally. Just wanted to ask you, why Tulsa ultimately? A little bit of recruiting, but coming out of high school, why was the Tulsa program so appealing to you?
It's a great story because Tulsa was actually one of the last schools to recruit me, and they came really later on, like think right around that signing day, last recruiting visit type time period. And they swooped right on in. For context, I did my undergrad in computer information systems and cybersecurity. Tulsa has a really, really, really strong cybersecurity program. And so that was something that initially piqued my interest. But just going on the visit and meeting the staff, meeting the players, it was one of those things. And I didn't take very many recruiting visits, but it felt right. And I went with my gut and I just kind of committed and I signed that following Wednesday. And so it's a great story because if you would have told me my college experience just all around would have looked anything like this in high school, I wouldn't have believed you.
Wow. And I know it's a fascinating story, and I'm really excited to be able to talk about it, man, because outside of, your personal journey, I've been just so impressed with what Tulsa has been able to do developing talent. I mean, obviously Zaven Collins last year, Jackson Player's a guy who I've talked to in the past, Allie Green, who I know transferred over to Missouri, Caleb Evans, a guy that I've talked to that transferred over to Missouri as well. Like, there's just so much talent on this Tulsa offensive and defensive line. Can you talk to me a little bit about just the development of the program and development of making guys next level players, being able to take guys in a lot of respects? Some guys are very under recruited and they have been developed into next level NFL players.
Yes, and I think majority of that stems from the fact that Tulsa, you have to think smallest FBS school, right? And so naturally, we just play and we work hard with an edge. And so I attribute that not only to the players and all the hard work that we put in and day out, but also our staff for pouring into us on and off the field and just really making sure that we're prepared for any and all situations and teaching us that in times of adversity to really to sink down to the level of our training and all these kind of details and things that are instilled in us. And you might think it's a small thing early on, but we know in this sport that nothing is really small, and they've just done a great job instilling certain values in us, and it shows in the way we play and the grit we play with.
And so when I was doing my research on you, of course, I started on the Tulsa team roster, right? Like I'm looking through a few of the notes, and I really like Tulsa's site, man, because they do a great job getting like little tidbits and background pieces, which is kind of cool. I've heard of obviously, guys making it to a high level, then the high school honors them and all this type of stuff. Is this true that, and I would love just a little bit of the background on this, Jersey Village High School, which is where you went, they already have a Chris Paul Day at school. Is this true?
Yes, as much as I do not like to admit it, yes, April 28th, 2017 is Chris Paul Day at Jersey Village High School.
I love it, man. I love it. And I don't want to embarrass you. That's just the coolest thing in the
No.
world. Like, I'm looking, I'm like, I wish my high school had a Ryan Roberts name, and I wasn't cool enough to get a day.
Oh. Yes, there's a proclamation and everything. So I have so much love for my high school.
I love that, man. I love that. And obviously, you're a guy that I'm sure the Tulsa staff absolutely adores you because you're a guy that's literally played all over the offensive line. And I know that you're probably a player that's just like, hey, man, wherever you need me, I will do the job. You played left, right guard, you play right tackle. You've done a little bit of everything. Can you talk to me a little bit about just the journey positionally, trying to find where the right spot is and ultimately making that next jump to the NFL? That's going to be a huge selling point to a lot of teams, the fact that you can play so many different positions.
Yes. So it was funny. Coming out of high school, right? I was recruited to Tulsa, and I guess what you're recruited as a high school player really doesn't matter because I mean it's always subject to change. You're not at the school yet, but obviously came in thinking I was going to play tackle. So I redshirted in the fall of 2017, and so went through the entire spring and even fall camp, still going at tackle, obviously behind some really talented dudes. And then actually, I believe it had to been either the week of the first game in 2018, which was Central Arkansas. And my coach pulled me into his office and said, hey, we're going to be putting you at right guard, and so you need to basically, come on with the come on and let's do this thing. And so I just jumped right in and went in at right guard, and it was a huge learning process, and you have to switch up your stance and the way you come off the ball and certain assignments that you were used to as a tackle, and it just you have to switch that up on the fly. And so it was a great learning developmental thing for me, and I got to play alongside some of the greatest guys, mentors that I've ever met in my life. And then in 2019, I was moved to left guard. And that was obviously not as big of an adjustment, but, still a minor adjustment there. I played there throughout that season. And then in 2020, we did happen to have a transition in terms of offensive line coaches. And so we got a new offensive line coach, and he saw me. He had watched the film, and he says, "No, like I think you should be out there on tackle. Let's go ahead and move you to right tackle." And so that was probably the biggest adjustment of all because, okay, I came in at tackle, but I don't have any game time experience at tackle. So it's a totally different ball game. So definitely had to learn there and grow there. But it actually ended up working out really well for me as the season just progressed. And there were a couple games where I had to switch from right to left, right? Like if our left tackle goes down or something happens, switching over and doing that with ease, and playing the first game of this season at left tackle and all those different things. So I'm excited that I have all that in those different positions. I think that's great, and I'm really proud of it.
Well, I'm surprised the staff hasn't gotten you snapping, man. That's the only spot you have
You
left.
know, that's the one spot. I haven't unlocked that one yet.
Love it, love it. Well, Chris, let me ask you: is there a position that you've played, since you've played 4 different spots now, obviously more extensively at right tackle and both guards? Is there a spot that you feel most natural playing? Because I know you said you came in as a tackle, you kind of had to do the guard thing, you went back to tackle. Is there a spot that you feel like is your best spot potentially, where you can continue to grow, maybe at the next level potentially?
Ooh, I'd say I probably make that a tie, and it's
Okay.
weird. A tie between left guard and right tackle.
That's interesting. That's really interesting, because a lot of guys always say, and I know obviously, playing guard is, going from left guard to right guard comparative to left tackle, right? Like that's a much different transition. But it's very interesting because a lot of guys usually say, like, working out of a left-handed versus a right-handed stance, like it's a huge transition. I know they always say, like, wipe
It
in with a
is.
different hand, but that's very interesting.
It is.
Yeah. No, and I think, again, just kind of looking forward as an NFL draft guy, like that's a huge selling point, though. There's teams that are going to be like, this guy can play 3 to 4 positions at the next level. If he's a starter at one, he can back up multiple positions. We can shuffle like you've already done, which is awesome. And I want to ask you now, because you already talked about, I mentioned some of the guys that you played with on the offensive line. You mentioned some of the guys like in the past even. And obviously that's a great group. And there's been a lot of great offensive players that have come around. And I know that you guys have Stokes and Johnson, a wide receiver, that are going to be coming out this year, who are both really good football players. I want to ask about that defense, though, because I mentioned Zaven, I mentioned Jackson, Cullen Wick, Goodlow, who I didn't know much about, apparently has been breaking onto the scene a little bit. Can you talk to me a little bit about those trench wars that you have every day in practice and how those guys have improved your game?
Yes, absolutely. And I might be biased, obviously, but we have, I think, one of the most talented defenses in the country, especially the defensive line. They challenge us. They make us better each and every day. And I truly believe that iron sharpens iron, and you just have so many multiple talented guys on that defensive line. And so getting to go against them day in and day out and get true real work, it's truly prepared us for every game that we've played so far. And I mean, they're just, I don't have enough good things to say about them.
Yeah. And I've talked to most of those guys, so I completely understand, just by kind of hearing them speak and talking about the Tulsa program. Like, I completely understand how they have been a big influence, not only on yourself, most likely, but just on the program in general. And I would love to ask you, being a guy that's played all over the place, are there some players that you like to watch? Obviously, like, we're trying to emulate to a degree. Maybe in the offseason, we're watching film on some NFL guys, past, present. Are there some guys that you like to watch that maybe a little more extensively than others?
Guys like at the next level.
Yes, yeah. So guys that, like, maybe when you just have some downtime, you're trying to pick up on things, maybe some snatch techniques, or just how a guy moves in his pass sets, like that type of
Mhm.
thing.
Lane Johnson is really talented.
He is, man. He really
He's
is.
very talented. Yes.
And he's an Oklahoma kid too. So
I know. Like, it all comes back full. The world is so small, but yeah, Lane Johnson is extremely talented.
I love it, man. I love it. And I have to ask you, Chris, because I know there's, especially with all the talent you guys have been producing, I'm sure in the off season, even with COVID still kind of being a thing, right? Like, I'm sure people are just filing in from a scouting side of things, coming in, measuring you, seeing what you look like, seeing what the team looks like, game day visits. Like, I'm sure it's been crazy. Getting the Senior Bowl invite, man, had to be surreal. I just want to hear about the moments when you found out, and just how surreal that moment, because it's crazy to think about.
It was to me, it was so random, right? Like I just happened to have been walking around like our facility, and all of a sudden my head coach like just taps me on the shoulder and he's like, "Okay, come to my office." So initially I'm like, "Okay, what could this possibly be about?" Like, like, am I in trouble? Like, why are you calling me to the office? But we talk a lot, so like it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. But he's pulled me into his office, and all of a sudden, like, I see the box on his desk, and I'm like, okay, no, like, it's not for me. So I'm just gonna get those thoughts out of my head. Like, it's not for me, right? And then he hands me the box, and then that's when the excitement starts. And I literally hugged him for about 5 minutes, like just in shock, because like it was just so great to see that. And it's like you sort of saw like all the hard work that you've been putting in come to fruition. And like I could not thank God enough for the opportunity. I couldn't.
Well, I loved hearing that you had a nice moment, obviously, with the coaches there. Like that's obviously a big moment. You've been working 5 years, well, more than 5 years, going back to high school and whenever you started playing football for that moment, obviously. What was kind of the next step? Because I know like you're, taking in the moment yourselves. When you had the conversation with the family, did you talk to Jim Nagy like at some point? Like what is just kind of the whole sphere? Because like, and I know this from a fact, all of the accomplishments I have or like that, my wife has or whatever, the parents is always something a little, it's a step up, it's the family.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, that's incredible. So what was just kind of like the overarching moments like, man? It had to be crazy.
Yes, my family first and foremost was extremely excited, especially my parents. Like they're currently in Nigeria right now, and so obviously I had to deliver that information like over the phone.
Yeah.
And so like I called them and I'm like, hey, mom and dad, like, guess what? And they're like, what? And I said, I've been invited to the Reese's, Senior Bowl. And they like, if you know anything about making calls to Nigeria, like there's usually a 4-second delay. And so I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. And then you just hear this loud scream, like loud, intense scream, like, yes. Like, and they were just so proud and so happy. And like, it was a really awesome moment. And I wish I could have captured some of them, but my eyes and ears can't record, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
well, it's stuck in there for the rest of your life. No,
it's memorable,
Absolutely. And I'm genuinely, man, just for a second, like I am very happy that you had that moment because that is just insane to think about. So big congratulations again on that. And I only have a couple more questions for you. I really appreciate all the time that you've been able to give me. I just want to kind of touch base on the team for the rest of the season. Obviously, last year, you guys had a notable season, a lot of wins, big time players. I know we're sitting at 5-6 right now, so we need to win this last game to get bowl eligible. What are just some of the goals that you have from a team perspective and individually for yourself for the remainder of the season?
Yes, for the remainder of the season, I would say the ultimate goal is to continue to prepare at an optimum level and ensure that we're doing that on our part. But most importantly, when we get into these games, continue to feed off of each other. That's like a really big deal. And I've noticed just obviously being here for 4 or 5 years, that plays a big role in terms of how your games go, how you feel with each other during the game. And so feeding off of each other, energizing one another, and just importantly playing together and clicking at the same time. I think that's going to be really important for us on Saturday.
Absolutely. And kind of the last question I have for you, looking forward a second, obviously we have the remainder of the season, then we have the draft process. We're going down to Mobile. There's a lot of great things. Just the opportunity to play professional football. You being a Texas guy, especially, I know that that's been ingrained in you. How long has that been a dream? And what will that be like when you can officially finally say, what type of blessing would it be when you're officially a professional football player?
Wow. It has always been a dream. And first of all, just getting the opportunity to play Division I college football has just been a blessing in and of itself. but then also having this opportunity to then play at the next level is even bigger. And finally achieving that would I look forward to the moment to just look back all the way to high school and all the coaches, mentors, people I've met that have helped me along the way, and say that we did it. Like we did this.
I love that. And it's obviously a great story, Chris. And I really appreciate you again sharing a little bit with me. Again, joined by Chris Paul, offensive lineman for the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes. You should take a look. Number 71, playing right tackle currently, but at any snap, he could be at a different position. This is how talented this football player is. Chris, appreciate it again, man. This is awesome. I know it's during the season. You just got the invite. A crazy time for you, but thank you so much for the time today.